One thing I'll point out, this last game being a 0 is not a fluke or anything. He did concede / drop this round. The exact reasons are not exactly known, but, you know, he did actually drop from there. But his results before that were magnificent, so we're still going to go over his list. Going into this list, he says, Gwade, 9.41, I guess. So we got Beast Boss, Squeakosaur, Gazgul, Captain Badrook, Mazrog, Knob with Waaagh Banner, Follow Me Lads, War Boss with Cunning but Brutal, Weirdboy. One small 10-man unit of Weirdboy, a big brick of Weirdboys, only one truck, followed by one battle wagon, Flash Gits, 33 Gretchen, because we like to run those 3 10-man units, Mega Knobs, a 3-man unit instead of the 2, and then 2 War Bikers. Very slim list. It is a what we like to call the Sean Naden archetype, as he was the first one to bring it out. Mind you, at Cherokee Open, they were using player placed terrain. In player placed terrain, if you didn't know, you guys roll off to see who goes first. The person that gets the ability to put a piece of terrain first has a great ability to dictate the conditions of the battlefield, because they can just place it somewhere near the middle, whether to put a small piece of terrain in the middle, that way they get a huge firing lane, or a large piece of terrain, that way they can actually stage. One thing I did know and I heard is that they changed it from it being you can just place it right in the center to you have to offset 4 inches from the center, I believe. So they did change the conditions of the battlefield. So just know going into this, it was player placed. The person did understand it, because you have to be a high level player to use this correctly. I'm not a fan of player placed terrain, but I have been to LVO and tried this too, so I knew exactly what the strengths are when you have player placed terrain. So let's go. His first matchup was Thousand Suns, which is another faction that low-key getting a little bump up again, right? When Eldar just got kind of smacked off the map a little bit in CSM, you can see some of these other factions that are trying to come up and actually get some love back, and I think Thousand Suns is one of them. Now that they can get close enough to close the distance, Magnus can't just get shot off the table so effectively from CSM and from Eldar as much. I see them going, hey, we can bring it back now, y'all. So we have Exalted Sorcerer and Disc of Zeech, Infernal Master, a Thousand Sun Sorcerer and Terminator Armor, Armin and Zeech, and then Magnus the Red. We have 2 units of 10 rubrics with Flamers. I believe they have Flamers. Yep, yes. And then a 5-man unit, and then a 10-man unit of Zangors, followed by a brick of Terminators and a Zangor Enlightened squad. Now, not the most refined list from what I understand, but I am seeing people starting to ring Terminators again, so we'll keep an eye on this as we go forward. It was the first round matchup. We know that the first round matchup sometimes can be, hey, the player could have just fine of a list, but then they're not up to the skill level necessarily yet. Mark did put 100 points on that, but we're going to keep an eye on Thousand Suns going forward as they're kind of making a splash again. So let's look at his second matchup is Tau. Tau is one of those factions that is also getting kind of coming up to the forefront, but that's because they have a great gameplay into Space Marines, into Custodes, whether any version of Power Armor, Space Marines, Tau just handle them with as a whole. So we know what that's like. So we have Commander Farsight, Commander Shadow Sun, and then a Coldtar in a Commander Battlesuit. Exemplar of the Kaiyun, that just means that they can use their army-wide ability 1 turn sooner, which means they get sustain 1 and they're spotlighted to sustain 2. So we get Crisis Suits, a larger unit of Crisis Suits, Ghost Kill Battlesuit, a Piranha, Riptide, Skyray Gunship, Stealth Battlesuit, 2 Tetras. This looks like a pre-Data Slate list besides the Riptides. They don't have as much, we'll say, transport infantry as people would like to use, and as much infantry just for kind of holding the middle as these other factions or these newer tile lists do, and it runs these Skyray Gunship. So it's not the most prime or like ideal in the current meta, but the Riptides are magnificent. He might have just brought this because he knew it was going to be LVO terrain, and he was hoping to just make a huge gun line. I know a lot of people are doing that when they will go to LVO. They're like, hey, I get a bunch of open lines of sight. I'm just gonna gun you off the table, get. So we have the third list is Thousand Suns again. That's why we're gonna keep, mind you, next week going forward, we're gonna keep an eye on Thousand Suns because they might just shoot up to the top here soon. Their output is amazing, and people don't have really the defense to deal with that. A lot of other factions. So we have Armin, Exalted Sorcerer, Infernal Master, Magnus the Red, and then Thousand Suns Terminator and Armor again. Sorcerer and Terminator Armor again. Rubric Marines, a 10-man unit, one 10-man unit, 2 5-man units, the Mutilated Vortex Beast, the Terminator Squad, and the Zangor Enlightened. You can see these lists are easily 1,000 points of characters. This comes down to the Thousand Suns player being very proficient in when they allocate resources and pretty much targeting whatever can kill Magnus and trying to kill it first. He did only get a 79-point win here, so I wonder what the mission was. As his fourth game, this was his lowest scoring mission. And why that is possibly because it was Eldar. So this is one of the new Eldar kind of archetypes going forward. They still bring the Avatar of Cain, but something else they brought here, we'll go into it. So we have Artark Wayleaper, the Farseer, and Avatar of Cain, and then Eldred Uthray. 2 units of Shadow Specters, a Warlock Conclave, 2 units of War Spires, 2 Wraith Lords. So those are their version of Dreadnoughts, 2 support guns with D cannons, and then 2 walkers. So what's odd about this, or interesting, what I found is interesting about this, is you have the Warlock Conclave that can either go to Uthred, Ulthray, or the Farseer, right? So I think that really is it might be matchup dependent. I'm not really seeing the exact utility of this. I looked over the data sheet. It gives like -1 to wound and some other things. It's really, they're all just like 1 OC. I'm not 100% sure. I probably missed it. Maybe someone in chat or whatever can tell me. But Conclave is making an appearance. It can go into either one of these characters. And then the Wraith Lords. Wraith Lords are just kind of cheap for what they do. They give you Bright Lances. They give moderately good damage and decent durability. The mission could play a huge factor in why the scoring was this. But like always, you do got to be a little bit careful. The Warp Fighter shenanigans to get into your backfield super early. The Farseer can pretty much get in your backseer early as well. He would be being able to move, advance, shoot, and then fire and fade and move again. And that might be why he takes the Warlock Conclave, because he might just double move onto one of your objectives and be able to auto-see you or just kill you, whatever on there. And then the Warwalkers that are just cheap to get up to front with their scouting and their weird durability. He did have lower scoring, just depends on what the mission was, so we'd have to look into that more. His 5th game, he got 100, which was going into... Don't worry, guys. I also look at the chat right after I go over this, so don't worry. We have the Splinter Seed Assault Force. You guys know that's a new one. It's a new one. Archon with the Nightmare Shroud, Archon, and then Lilith Express. Cabalite Warrior, witches. 1, 2, 3, 4 Raiders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Venoms. Incubi, Reavers, Scourges, and then Talos. So in my opinion, whenever I go into Drukhari, the issue is when you're a not durable elite army, sometimes as an orc player, you have to understand that your objective into another, let's say, elite army is that you're not going to try to take primary early in the game. You're just going to deny enemies primary by staging and then taking your chunk of flesh off the primary when someone goes to stick to it, right? They put what they consider a durable unit there, you crash into and destroy it, or you tag the objective with like a Death Killer War Trike and some bikers or some grots. You're looking to deny primary. And then later in the game, once you've taken enough of their assets, then you start to beat them down and take primary, run away, because you're constantly throwing secondaries at the same time. Drukhari want to do something similar. The issue is we do have units that can actually hold primary when they commit. And when they do commit, they're just getting picked up in response. Flash kits are super great answers to them. And then they don't have great ways to deal with Mazrog or even a Death Killer War Trike with the Feel No Pain, Beast Boss, and Squigosaur. Our ability to fight in death, to trade out whatever their most killing unit is that's throttling, like this Lilith Hexbrass one, or there's Ankron, just becomes really hard for them. So they pretty much get no primary whenever I played with them, because whenever they try to do that, you usually have something that can counter and then stage and then go punch them off the objective, and then sometimes they can't take you off the objective, so then you just smash. The last game he actually played was into the same person that he conceded to, which was the same person that actually won the event, which is Thousand Suns. So very interesting that he actually beat that player and then conceded in the next game. I think they were just a disagreement on rules or something, and he didn't want to, do anything complicated, so then he just dropped. So this is the Thousand Suns list that did go undefeated, or not defeated, that won the whole tournament, that did lose one, which was to this orc list. So we have Armand Magnus the Red, Exalted Sorcerer on Disc of Zeech, Exalted Sorcerer on Disc of Zeech, and then Infernal Master. This looks a bit more like we're familiar with. 2 bricks of rubrics, 1 small man unit rubrics, and then 2 units of Zangors. Very interesting. 2 units of Chaos Bond and a Mutalic Vortex. Those last 5 units, I guess the Mutalic Vortex beats and catch me off guard. That's a good unit for like reserving, coming outside the table and just annihilating someone with shooting. But double units of Zangors and then 1,000 Thon Spuns caught me off guard. And this really came down to the player knowing his meta, knowing how to utilize player place terrain, because there's nothing exactly spectacular about this list. A lot of time it comes down to the Thousand Suns player really knowing how to manage their resources and when to attack you and kill your most killing unit, and then sticky Magnus in your face and being like, haha, you messed up. So great job to Mark, even though he did drop that last game. Let's take a quick look over his list again. Beast Boss on Squigosaur. Something I'm personally finding too is that I love my Squig Hog Boy with Nabon Smash Squig and the whole big unit. The thing is, enemies are packing a bunch of a bunch of weapons that are at least damage 3 or 4 because they're taking into the custodes, right? So a lot of the time they're going to chip down your Squig Hog Boy units. You might have a difficulty delivering them because they're going to move block you, and then when you do get into combat, they do have the ability to punch you out, compared to the Beast Boss on Squigosaur that now gives you the delay road blocking capability, can go toe to toe with some like kind of cheap like a Tyranids monster or a Wraith Lord and stand there toe to toe with them and eventually chop them down with Edwappa's Kill Choppa. So he becomes a dual all-purpose tool where some matchups you're just slowing someone down and getting in the way. Maybe you're counter doing a heroic intervention to stop enemies from piling in, getting enough fights into a unit that you don't want to die, or they're actually able to kill something for the same point cost of under 200 points, let's say, some Tyranid monsters and such. So Beast Ball's Quigosaur is getting a bit more interesting than me as well, because I noticed that in my matchups too, where I'm like, my Squiggle unit's been diminished, but if it was a Beast Boss and Squigosaur, I probably could have kept the pressure up and not been so worried about the enemy's offense. Then you have Gaz, which we all know we love Gaz for actually Makari's lethal. That's the true value in Gaz. Captain Bradrock, always going to bring him going forward, at least to the book codex drops. And then Mazrog. See, people normally say Beast Balls plus Gaz plus Maz is too much. I disagree. Now with Waaagh Banner, follow me, lads, because sometimes you just need those extra 2 inches. And then Cunning but brutal, that way that big unit can fall back and charge, because a smart player will understand if I charge the side of that 20-man unit of boys with like a Rhino, they're not going to break my Rhino. If their knob isn't anywhere near it, they're not going to get Power Claws attacks in. Boom, you're not doing anything. But if you can fall back with that unit and still charge, now you're dealing with a unit that can steal OC. A lot of the time you'll do the Waaagh Banner before your actual wall, or even if you do it after your wall, the issue is the enemy knows I have to allocate to killing this right now, because then these boys are going to fall back, charge, auto see something, the war boss, the knob, and then the knob that's leading the unit have enough of a punch that you're actually still going to demolish something that's trying to hold an objective if that unit's not one shot. So it's not that your 20-man unit of boys can't die, it's that the enemy now goes, I really have to kill that right. And so everything goes into that while the rest of your army was forward. The 2 Weirdboyz is just secondary scoring. This allows you to pick tactical or fixed and feel better about it, because the Weirdboyz can mind, oh, I'm going to go here and deploy. Oh, I'm going to go here and deploy. I'm going to go over here and cleanse. It allows you to kind of do that a bit more freely. And you can take the 10-man unit of boys with you in case you want to stick it in someone's backfield, like, I got my boys back here. So I really love to see that. Truck, wagon, flash kids, bunch of Gretchen, because a lot of people want a deep strike. Everybody wants to come in within 3 inches. Hey, Gretchen, just make a nice little T-bone maneuver, or a nice, what people call a wishbone, etc., and you can just screen on your backfield so good. Oh, you got a 3-inch deep strike? No, you don't. Boom. So I love that. Couple unit of extra bladed wounds on Maz, and then 2 units of war bikers without the death killer war trike. That's fine. Bikers are fun for what their durability is. The fact that they can do that they can have assault means they can advance and still do a secondary, and they have just enough OC, what makes it fun. So great job by you. I really love the list. It's similar to Sean Nathan's list, but just kind of modified a little bit for the terrain and for the secondary game.